We have Ian again.
We do have Ian again. He had a smudge on his forehead too.
Yes, that's some Eagle Premier grease.
Eagle Premier grease?
We call it Betsy grease because that's my old lady.
Yeah.
What is that from? I just noticed it.
It's from the Eagle Premier. It's Betsy grease.
Oh, is it from that door thing?
Probably. I keep it on when I get the opportunity to have it.
So Jeremy Parkin.
Yes, sir.
Ian Hazel.
Yes.
Mr. Jordan Halliday.
That's me.
So, I'm going to come across right now as a really fucking spoiled vegan kid.
Okay.
But I go to the grocery store today,
Mm-hmm.
and I do 99% of my grocery shopping at Harmon's.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're not from here, they know. You guys know. It's just a little local grocery store. We say little. They have 8 or 9 locations or whatever.
That ought to add more.
No, they don't have that many.
Huh.
Go to the case where they normally keep all of the vegan stuff that we have.
They're sold out of Gallonaise.
No, actually, they had Gallonaise, which is
yesterday
actually lucky. And
yesterday I went and they were sold out, and I was mad.
they had, and this is what's getting spoiled because it's just a normal grocery store.
Yeah.
But they had tofutti cheese on sale for $2 a package.
Ooh.
They had tofutti sour cream on sale for $2 a package. They had Follow Your Heart cheese on sale for $3 a package.
Dang.
Out of all of it. Every last bit of it.
Who buys it? What other vegan around here buys it?
They did have the Day of Cheese.
I will find them.
But they wasn't on sale.
Of course.
And so, it sucks because you're like, okay, it's awesome that I can go to a grocery store in suburban Salt Lake and get all the shit that everyone always wishes they could have at a grocery store.
Yeah.
But then they're always fucking sold out. It's awesome that people are buying it, but leave some for me.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Thing is, the Gallonaise wasn't on sale. Well, it's on sale compared to other places.
It's always cheaper than
It's
other
like
places.
$5.
Yeah, it's really good price.
A large bottle.
I know, I bought some. They did have Silk Nog in stock, so I got that.
I need to get the Gallonaise again. That's
The Gallonaise.
That's the way to go.
Gallonaise.
I would go through it every week.
So, Ian, what do you guys do for Thanksgiving? Are you the only vegan one in your family?
Mm-hmm.
So, do they treat you differently? Treat you special? Do you do your own thing?
No.
How do you handle Thanksgiving being vegan?
Well, this Thanksgiving, my partner and I are gonna go to her family's house to eat, and I'll hang out with my family earlier in the day. And then we're gonna go over there.
Do you know have you been to her family's
No.
for Thanksgiving?
No, but her and I are gonna make a bunch of vegan stuff.
Are they pretty receptive to the whole vegan thing?
Yeah, they're far more receptive than my family, I
Her
would
mom
say.
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had dinner with her mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a date.
Sweet.
It was.
It was.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How old is she?
I'm not sure.
Is she old enough to be classified as a cougar?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
she's a grand cougar.
But if she's a cougar, are you really a catch for a cougar?
I am, because I'm a bear.
You are a bear.
And so if a cougar can catch a bear, that's something. That's something.
I don't know. I hate this time of year being vegan, dealing with all the family crap.
Mm.
I don't know, Jordan, if you know what's going on with your sister and your mom.
I don't. I know that my mom, now that she's vegetarian,
Quote unquote vegetarian.
those were quotes.
Yeah.
She eats Jell-O. But she doesn't eat meat and anything else like that, so I'll give her that. But she's done that since I went to prison,
Yeah.
and so that's
Well, so last year we did our own vegan thing. We didn't go to any
Yeah.
parents' house. We had our own little vegan meal, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
And we want to do the same thing again for your mom. And so Callie invited her over for that. And she's like, oh, well, your other sister Stacey already invited me, but you guys are invited also. Like, we haven't fucking heard anything.
Yep.
So are we really invited? And why the fuck do we want to go?
I don't want to go.
Exactly.
No offense.
Well, it's it just turns into that shit where it's like, oh, here, we made some special mashed potatoes for you. And you're like, fuck this. Like,
but what I hate about it is that they make you feel like they went so out of their way. And I appreciate that they do something for you, but don't guilt me about it. Like, it's not like you went out of your way. You made mashed potatoes that your kid can eat because
your kid's
has
allergic.
Allergies. Yes. Or even when they don't do that, they're like, yeah, we made you something. Here's a fruit salad. It's like, everybody can eat a fruit salad.
Exactly. Or like what happened one year, they're like, you just bring a vegetable for everyone. And you're like, okay, so we bring one thing, and then that's the one thing we can eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, how do you do you do the same thing? Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean,
how do you deal with it? Like,
I just deal with it. It's not as big of a deal to me, I guess. I don't know. I can eat whenever, and it's not as uncomfortable as a thing to me when my family doesn't do it, because I'm just kind of used to it, and I'm kind of hearing it from all of my friends.
Well, I never really had a problem with it until my daughter got a little older. Because now I don't want her to feel that way. I don't want to have her to go to any dinner, fuck it, for Thanksgiving or not, and be like, well, we're getting the short shaft. Because, because my parents make me be vegan. So,
I always laugh because, by the way, me and him, he's my brother-in-law. So,
yeah, if you don't know that, I'm married to Jordan's sister.
So,
I fuck her. If that's what... That's a more crass way of saying it.
Obviously, you have a child, but I didn't need to know that. But
okay, we have had sex. Is that a little bit better?
I believe it.
Okay,
I believe it.
We have at one point in time.
Wow. So anyway, they lump all of us together. That's my favorite thing. Is they're like,
do.
So Heidi, I want you to bring the mashed potatoes. Shane, bring the turkey. Stacy, bring whatever, the pie. The vegans bring some veggies.
I think more of it has to do with they don't want to put anything onto you.
Oh no,
because you're like that single like black sheep kid. You're like,
oh yeah,
because like most of your siblings are way older.
Oh yeah,
and so like it's more like Callie and Jeremy, you bring this, and just have Jordan will lump you in with that.
Jordan, that's what it always is. That's how I feel. I always feel like I am the baby, but like Callie's only 3 years older than me.
Yeah.
And maybe it has to do with.
But the next closest to her is 6 years older than her.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, but it's true. It's like with me, I'm just the crazy one. Like I've I was in prison, and I'm just the one that had the FBI come to their house.
See, you're lucky that all happened to you around them, and they weren't ever around when that happened to me.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I think they vaguely know that stuff happened, but they don't have that representation of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I still think your parents look down on me, and I think the rest of your family looks down on me, because I think a lot of them, they blame me for you. If that makes sense.
But I know, but that's the funny thing is that it has nothing to do with it.
It has absolutely nothing. And I think more than like the vegan aspect of it, I think they blame me for you being an atheist. When in all reality,
I was atheist.
You got me to be atheist. Like, I was always agnostic, but you're the one who got me to admit to being atheist and not the other way around.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, when I first started seeing your sister, you were still like, I'm going on a mission,
yeah.
But...
yeah, I was a little Mormon boy. And then I studied theology and lost my faith.
So when did you leave the church, Ian?
I technically left the church after I moved out of my parents' house when I was 18, but I had made up my mind by the time I was like 10.
So were you going to church weekly up until 18?
Yeah, and it's funny because earlier this week I actually had a conversation with my mom where it started, and we've had lots of conversations like this before where she's like, what happened to you? I know you had a testimony, you used to believe in the church, and I have to remind her that I never did. But what it really boiled down to when I was growing up was my dad didn't raise me very well. He wasn't very smart about his tactics in trying to keep me around the church. And for me,
Hold on, explain that a little more.
okay, well, a lot of parents who are in the church are torn between trying to force their kids to go to church and trying to let them make up their minds for themselves. And my dad was always a pretty firm believer in, as long as I can just force this and pound it in, they'll believe it. That's how he dealt with us.
Isn't that the majority of LDS parents, though?
My parents.
I would say that's the majority of LDS parents in this state.
Community, yeah.
My parents, I would not say forced it. Like, I think that they definitely, they would have us go to church, but I mean, they didn't force me to go to school. I would skip school a lot too. I think they just spoiled me a little bit.
I think it's ironic that we have 3 ex-Mormons.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Anyways,
it's not in Utah.
It's not that uncommon in Utah. If you go anywhere else, you're like, there's 3 Mormons,
and
they're all ex-Mormons. But so your dad forced you really heavily to go?
Yeah, let's put it this way. So when I was talking with my mom, and she apparently didn't even know that any of this was going on.
She just thought you were like, honestly, always wanting to go?
Yeah, but she told me that she always thought, when I told her what was going on with my dad and I in this conversation, I'm going to skip ahead to the end of the conversation a little bit, she said she had a feeling that this was the case. She would always see me going to these like mission prep classes in church every Sunday, and every week I would go to the temple to do baptisms for the dead, and she was always like, it's cool that he's doing this, but it kind of seems like he doesn't want to. And what it was is with my dad, the whole thing was, if you don't go do baptisms for the dead with me every Saturday, you're going to be grounded for the next week. If you don't go to church every Sunday...
You did that every Saturday?
Yeah, for about 2 years.
That blows my mind. Like, what's even funny to me is, like, I probably actively stopped going to church when I was about 16. Started really pushing against it at about 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And I've never been to a temple, ever. And I was of age to be able to go to a temple, and I never went to a temple.
Yeah.
I really was, like, unlike a lot of my friends and a lot of ex-Mormons, I was completely faithful up until I was, like...
I remember you being, like, really faithful.
Yeah, and it's the funniest thing is what did it for me is actually studying faith. I was going to the college and studying, like, taking theology classes because I was getting ready to go on my mission, and I was hoping that if I took theology classes, I could be better prepared to combat people who weren't of the faith in order to convert them into the faith. And that was weird, and then I know that outside of Utah, it would sound weird to say, like, I was a priest.
Yeah.
But I was a priest in the Mormon church, and
I think we all were priests.
Were you all priests too?
I was. If he went till he was 18, he definitely was.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
But I
what's the lowest priestage you can have?
Deacon.
Yeah, so if anyone's listening, in Mormonism, there's different levels of priesthood.
Yeah.
Like, you get more secret powers the higher you go up, I guess would be the best way of describing it.
You got the Aaronic,
Yeah, you get Aaronic when you're a deacon, and then you move up to... You become a deacon when you're 12 years old.
Yeah.
It's a big rite of passage thing in the Mormon church. And then when you turn 14, you get moved up to deacon, 16 priest, and then 18 you get ordained an elder, and you also receive the Melchizedek priest.
And then
teacher at 14.
And then what's then there's the high priest.
Yes, high priest.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have to do to get into that.
I think
that's good old boy
stuff.
LSD. Yeah. But obviously, then the first major milestone is being baptized at the age of 8.
Yeah.
Because that's when, you're responsible for all the decisions
That's when you get the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, that's when the Holy Ghost can talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just chill out all the time.
So at age 10, Ian, you started not believing. What started that process? Was just, like, logically thinking it through, or...?
Well, I can honestly say that I never believed in it.
Uh-huh.
The only time I ever bore my testimony in church was when I was 3 and 4, and my parents would take me up there and whisper what to say into my ear, that whole thing.
I know this church is true.
Oh, wow. So you had those type of...
Yeah. And I never did believe, but it was right around the time that I was 10 or 11 that I started consciously realizing that I actually didn't. Up until that point, it was just... Yeah, I'm going to church. I guess at some point I'll realize that it's true. But then it just around the time I was 10 or 11, a lot of it had to do with thinking about going on a mission and just being like, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible. That sounds like a terrible way to spend the age of 19 to 21.
See, when I was younger, in my family, I was one pushing everything. I was one for pushing for family prayers. I was one pushing for, I was the big, we need to go to church. I mean, I remember in 4th grade, one of our assignments the first day of school was pick a book and read it cover to cover. That was one of our assignments, and you had to read a whole book cover to cover by the end of the year. I mean, it's an easy damn assignment, right?
Right.
I picked the fucking Bible.
Oh.
Right? And I did it.
Yeah.
I was like that kind of kid. But what did it for me was veganism. Honestly, veganism is what completely made me lose faith.
And that's what my parents were always so worried. They're like, you don't put, because, I went vegan at a very young age too, and they're like, you don't put so much faith in veganism because veganism is a lifestyle, is a diet. I know that it's a personal choice you made, but God's always more important than that. And I'm like, no, you don't want to kill
my whole thing was that, so I read the Bible and I read all the other Mormon texts, like the Book of Mormon and the Prologue of Christ and the Doctrine and Covenants, and there's so much in there that in the Word of Wisdom, it specifically states in the Word of Wisdom, that grain should be the staple of life. You should be eating grain. You should only eat meat in the times of winter and famine. And you should be used sparingly eating in those times. I don't know, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. You guys know that. And so, I would question that to, the leaders of my local church, my bishop and things like that. I'd be like, well, if it says, you should eat sparingly, why are we not eating it sparingly? There's nothing wrong with me choosing not to eat it. And they're like, well, there's nothing wrong with you choosing not to eat it, but, we shouldn't... I remember one of the bishops telling me one time, he goes, well, this is one of those things where men shouldn't be guided in all things. I'm like, no, it's pretty fucking clear. If you believe this, you're being guided.
The best answer.
And by looking at that, it made me start looking at it and saying, well, if they don't really believe this aspect of it, and if this isn't really true, and this doesn't jive with what I believe, it just made me start questioning everything, And I was still trying to defend it for a while, I'd be like, oh, well, in Hebrew, the word fish can be mistranslated. It's really a form of seaweed, and all that other bullshit where you're trying to justify it. And then it just, the more you think about it, it just fell apart from that point. But it was like, Ian, you never really had that. You just did the motions almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was a lot on the line, I guess. And that kind of came down to the situation I was being raised around as well. I had 2 friends who were sent to correctional facilities, youth correctional facilities, because of church-related decisions. My one friend told his parents, look, I'm not interested in the church anymore. I don't want to be ordained a priest, about 2 months before his 16th birthday. A few weeks later, he wakes up to a bunch of big,
they go to one of those boot
guys,
camp things.
And it was the boys' ranch they took him to, which is an LDS-owned correctional institution, which means that in addition to trying to correct the bad behavior, they're pounding the LDS church in. Mm-hmm. My other friend, for similar reasons, got sent to a wilderness therapy program, and so that was being breathed down my neck by my dad a lot as well.
How did those 2 turn out of those programs?
Ironically, not well, and my one friend who got sent to the wilderness therapy program and then again to another correctional facility after that, his parents blew their entire life savings on that venture, and it actually completely destroyed his whole family. They lost all their money, and he didn't turn out well. He's not going to church.
So he did turn out well.
Well,
I mean, but he's not socially well.
Yeah, he's not socially well. He's much more socially awkward than he used to be. Yeah. While, not going to... When I said he didn't turn out well, he's not going to church. It's not only did he not turn out the way they had hoped, but he's also not doing this other thing.
Negative backlashes.
And it's just... Same thing with my other friend. He turned out a little bit better, but that's because his family is very well-to-do, so he has plenty of good things going for him. He's just not going to church. It didn't do anything to help, but that was the big threat my dad had for me. This all happened behind my mom's back, too, I guess. So...
See, my parents' faith has always been really weird to me, because, growing up, they never, pushed it. I mean, it was, you go to church because you go to church, but it wasn't like, like your type of experience, and luckily my older siblings pushed back a lot earlier. So when I started pushing back, they were just like, whatever kind of a thing, but what's weird to me is like my dad was always spiritual, like, and always, like, he'll cry at the mention of God and things like that. It's kind of funny, actually. Like, have you guys ever seen Glenn Beck on TV and he'll start talking about things and just start crying? That's my dad. Okay. Like, honestly. He's not that crazy spiritual, but he's that, like, weird, emotional. But my mom, she's never been a religious person. Like, and that's what's really weird to me about, like, their dynamic. Like, you can talk to my mom and she'll be like, well, I believe in the church, I guess.
It's like a polar opposite of my parents.
And it's really funny to me, like, and my dad's pretty high up, I mean, relatively speaking, pretty high up in the church, I mean, he's in the stake presidency, so...
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, like, but, they never really pushed it super hard, and now they look at it, and they're just like, even my dad told me one time, he's like, I just view it that, one day you'll come back to the fold. Like, you're never actually an ex-Mormon. You're just a non-practicing Mormon.
Right.
And that's what they believe, and that's why they don't take you off their freaking papers after writing in 5 times.
God, yeah.
Personal experience.
Yes. Yes, it's ridiculous to take... Anyways, we've been talking about Mormonism for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Surprise.
I mean,
I know. Well, it's so...
Wait,
it's funny, like,
week,
it's so...
last
Like,
week.
it's so, like, ingrained in our culture
It
here.
is.
Like, when we deal with it so much, it's ridiculous.
I was just going to mention that, like you, I was always the one questioning things, like, but I was always the weird questions, like, the ones that, I mean, obviously ones that they didn't want to answer, like, why did God change his mind about black people, but the ones like, what are all these symbols on the temple? And they're like, we don't. I mean, you
See, what's funny about
questions.
like I asked those type of questions to my dad. My dad would be like, "Oh, well, this is awesome. This is why we have a pentagram, and this is why this." My dad was like all about that stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, "No, I'm not going to go that."
Yeah.
He was all about like, "Let's go to the temple and I'll show them to you." You know.
See, that probably would have helped keep my faith a little. No, it wouldn't have.
No,
I studied. And that's
It blows my mind. But what blows my mind also is the amount of misinformation about the LDS Church. Also, like, I don't know if you guys get this, but every once in a while I'll find myself like defending Mormons every once in a while. Like, people will say stuff, you're like, whoa, like, that's not accurate. Let me,
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, why am I defending this?
I mean,
bullshit?
our family. It's our family. Our family are, 90% of my family, aside from you guys, are Mormons.
Yeah, they're LDS.
So I defend my family because, at the same time, they're a really fucked up religion, but get the fucked up parts right.
Yeah, for me, it's less of defending my family and just trying to set ignorance straight.
Yeah.
I just, no matter where it comes from, I'm not a fan of people making stupid statements about something they have no idea about.
For example.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And so it's just...
It's like saying Obama is a socialist. Like,
right.
He's not a socialist. I wish he was a socialist.
Yeah.
Like, let's just be honest about that.
If we had a socialist society, that would be a lot better.
It'd be a step in the right direction as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But he's not a socialist, so if you're going to think that, then let's correct your ignorance on that issue.
And on that note, those people, Social Security and welfare and all those other issues which are socialist in Medicaid, Medicare, a lot of times, aside from maybe welfare, but a lot of times they're for that stuff, and then they say, fuck socialism,
Well, this is my big example I always argue with people about, and every once in a while you'll get people arguing against it, especially the really extreme libertarians.
Uh-huh.
I'm always like, well, do you like schools? Socialism in action. Do you like a police department? Socialism in action. I mean, fire departments used to be privately run organizations. Socialism in action. This is actually an argument I got into. Do you guys know how fire departments started? It's kind of fucked up. They were insurance companies, private insurance companies, and you'd go and buy fire insurance.
Oh, wow.
Right? And when you went to a fire company and you bought fire insurance, you were only buying that fire insurance from that fire department. And you'd get a little plaque and you'd put it on the front of your house. Right? And so, like, if there was a fire, all the local fire departments would come by, and whichever plaque you had, that's the fire department that would fight the fire for you. If you had the wrong one, they wouldn't fight the fire. Or if you didn't have one, they wouldn't fight the fire.
Yeah.
Right? So the society got together and said, it's probably a better idea if my neighbor's house is on fire, if I help pay for a fire department so my house doesn't burn down also. Makes sense. Greatest good of society, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is the difference between health insurance? Like, I don't get it.
We
Like,
should
if my neighbor
Obamacare
has
or no.
meningitis, or if my neighbor has the flu, or if my neighbor has these illnesses that can easily be transmitted to me, I
Even the
want
common
them
cold.
taken care of. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, isn't it in the best interest for them? Because it's in the best interest of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they take something like major cities like in New York. Do you really want somebody going down to the subway system that has, whooping cough?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, honestly,
Tuberculosis.
like tuberculosis.
Yeah.
So is it the best interest to make sure that everyone can receive affordable health care? Because it helps the general society. They thought that about fire departments. Why don't they think that about personal health? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. It just blows my mind. But then I take it to the next level, and I'm like, well, anything that should be like a necessity for life should be provided for. Like, I'm not saying it should be given to, but it should be part of living. You need food.
Yeah.
Everyone should have a right to fucking food.
A right to
Like,
shelter.
A right to shelter. A right, these are basic humanities, I think.
Isn't your dad an insurance agent?
Yeah, my dad is actually an insurance agent for Medicare. So,
Really?
Yeah.
So how does he feel about single payer systems?
I honestly don't talk to my dad as much about healthcare, and I'm not familiar with the healthcare lingo. So when you say that, I don't even know what you mean.
Single payer would basically be, you have one person paying for the insurance,
Uh-huh.
which is a government entity 99% of the time.
Right.
So government pays for the insurance for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad doesn't feel good about that. I don't.
He does not feel good about that.
No. My dad has actually told me several times in the last few months that if Obama wins this election, he's actually going to lose his job because his job as a Medicare agent will be moot once Obamacare kicks in. And I haven't really looked into that, but it's kind of surprising.
Is that because there'll be an exchange?
I believe. I believe that there are going to be specific trained assigned agents to sell or distribute these
Obamacare propaganda.
I'm not. I mean,
I don't know.
I'm not 100% familiar with how that aspect of it works, but I thought the exchange was mainly for people who didn't have insurance through their employers and things like that, and it wouldn't affect the current system of people buying Medicare Part D, which is what you're probably made an agent for.
My mom's saying, or I was just saying that.
Oh, go ahead.
She's saying that her work is now responsible for paying 40% more to everyone to ensure that they have health insurance, or something like that. And I'm not understanding how that changed with Obama.
Okay, so basically, I am no expert on this.
Yeah.
So if I say something wrong, I'm saying it wrong. Fuck you, internet. I don't care. So basically, what it is that if you don't have insurance in 2014, you will not receive tax breaks, tax benefits for having insurance. So basically, they're penalizing you to not have insurance because they want everyone to be insured.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what they're saying is that the lower your income is based on your tax rate, they will give you enough tax returns to be able to afford the insurance.
So
Does that make sense?
That's not on the business end. That's on the government end.
Well,
isn't it?
It makes it so you have to have insurance, whether that's employer-funded insurance or non-employer-funded insurance. And to my knowledge, if employers are providing insurance, they themselves get tax breaks. So if she's saying that they're increasing their pay, they're not really increasing their pay to their employees, so they're increasing their benefit package, which is considered part of their pay package, by giving them insurance, but also
40%?
reduces their tax burden. If it costs them 40% more per person to give them insurance, that means that they're paying them absolute shit.
Yeah,
absolute shit.
Well, it's Taco Bell.
That's just what it is. Yeah, it is Taco Bell. But I can't imagine that they're labor costs would increase by 40% because of insurance, especially with the tax breaks that they will be receiving by providing that insurance. It should, as far as my knowledge, it outweighs, it outbalances itself. It actually gives employers more of an incentive to provide it than to not provide it. But even if they don't provide it, they'll have the exchange with them that they can get it themselves for a reduced cost or next to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't, depending on your income. And if you're in that income bracket, it should cost them nothing.
Yeah.
But I mean, insurance is a joke. Like, my insurance is a fucking disaster. So I pay out about $6,000 a year, which is, I know it's average for most Americans.
Mm-hmm.
That's just to have the insurance.
Right.
And then I have a $3,000 deductible, which means that in order for my insurance to even start working, I have to pay out $9,000 in my pocket. Fucking grand.
Yeah.
Like, why have insurance at that point?
Yeah.
Doesn't your grandpa not have insurance?
No, my grandpa has insurance.
Your grandpa has insurance?
He's self-insured, but yeah, he has insurance.
Oh, okay, so what do you mean self-insured? He just buys his own insurance?
He's a rich fuck that can buy his own insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you said it was cheaper for him just to pay the bills than it would.
Yeah, but since now that he can qualify, he most of his life that's what he did.
Yeah.
Like he was never actually insured most of his life because what he did is he was basically hedging his insurance. So instead of like saying, "Oh, it cost me $9,000," what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that $9,000, I'm going to reinvest it and earn my interest on top of that instead of letting an insurance company earn it. And if I actually have a problem, I can pay it out. He's rich enough that if he had to go to the emergency room, he had the money to pay it out.
Yeah.
So it didn't benefit him to have insurance. So he never really had insurance because he was well enough to do to.
And that's what I was asking. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's that rich. And what's funny is if you ever talk to him, you hear him complain. If you ever get him talking about money, he won't talk about money. But if he does, he always complains that he's the poorest one of his siblings.
Oh, wow.
Which is ridiculously funny to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm the poorest one of my siblings.
and it's, I mean, not that he's not like super, super rich. He's very wealthy, don't get me wrong. I mean, his dad started an oil company. He comes from oil money.
Yeah.
And they own the airport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So,
Salt Lake one?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, his dad owned the controlling interest at the airport before he sold it.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then they have a lot of hep works for one of them.
Yeah, so they still own a lot of gas stations. They own a couple oil wells.
You didn't know that, did you?
No.
Yeah, so you know the company Premium Oil?
Yeah.
That's my grandpa.
Oh. I do see. Yeah, I got a friend that works for Premium Oils.
Yeah, that's my grandpa's
Well,
company.
Their gas station.
Yeah, one of their stations that they own.
Making $7 an hour.
Probably no insurance, too.
No. Absolutely not.
But you,
I'll talk to him about that for you.
but you
Depress him a little more.
But you picked up were you able to pick up a issue of Busted magazine with me in it because of it?
Yeah, I did get something out of it. My friend who works for Premium Oil, the convenience store, or one of them, they sell the Busted magazine, which is a little newspaper that's here in Utah that just, all it does is it's a bi-weekly publication, and it just prints mug shots
Don't
of
they
everyone.
print them like all over the country?
They may. I'm not sure.
I
I've
think
never seen
so.
it anywhere
I think in
else.
some jurisdictions they've made it illegal
Yeah.
because they print all arrests, not
Oh yeah,
convictions.
no. Yeah, mine said hold under it because I had a federal hold.
Yeah.
I had yet to been.
And not to get stereotypical, but you look very Muslim in it.
Do I?
Yeah.
I thought I looked like a whistling Dixie.
Whistling.
He looks like he's whistling. He looks like he's just.
Yeah, you have that weird Muslim stoner or Rastafari stoner face. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm here.
Truth be it.
You have your fucking weird ash Amish beard and like
that was
His crazy,
crazy hair.
that was when I was. I don't know. I was probably just thinking, fucking so pissed right now. So that was some bullshit. I'm not gonna lie.
Have
That
you
was
ever
some
seen your
bullshit.
mugshots, Ian?
Yeah.
What do they look like? Oh my! I'm a fucking like child in mine.
Yeah. My mugshot from the RNC looks exactly like my first driver's license photo.
Just a normal
just straight face.
Just straight face. I have one. I swear I look like I'm 14. Like I look like a fucking child, and I'm just a beaming smile, like
Kid on Christmas.
With how many places they transferred me to, I have to have at least 12 mugshots.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's so
it's
ridiculous.
crazy, and I have them in random places like Oklahoma.
See,
and
what's really funny is that my parents found out about my first tattoo by an arrest report. Which so happens to be, awesome. They also found out I got arrested. So it was a couple days after my 18th birthday. Like I'm barely 18. We were protesting a rodeo here. It's like Days of 47 rodeo. We do a sit-in in front of the rodeo. We get arrested. Planned arrest, not a big deal. We're in holding for a couple hours. They release us. Blah blah blah. And I was still living with my parents at the time, and I left my arrest report on my desk. And my mom came in there looking for something, I don't know what. I mean, she's not a snoop or anything.
Yeah.
She never really was, because she was always afraid of what she would find. Right? Yeah, one of those parents. And she found the arrest report was just sitting on my desk. I wasn't trying to hide it. I didn't even think about it. But on the arrest report, it's like, got arrested at the Delta Center for, pressing this radio. But on there it has the description, and it lists tattoos. And then all of a sudden, she didn't care about the arrest, but she's like, "You have a tattoo?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was like 13 or 14 when I got it." She's like, "You've had a tattoo for years that I didn't know?"
Remember the first time I had a tattoo? When I got a tattoo, I was with you guys.
Were you?
When I first got my first tattoo, yeah, we were all over.
Oh, on your side.
Yeah,
that shitty tattoo.
Yeah,
yeah.
And we went back to my parents' house, and my mom says, "Where is it?" I'm like, how the hell do you know I have a tattoo already?
Where is it?
I'm like, what are you talking about, Mom?
Do you have any tattoos, Ian?
No.
Do you want any tattoos?
Not really.
Just not your thing?
Not really my thing.
That's cool. Yeah.
I got started early, sadly.
Yeah, you have a bunch of really, really shitty ones.
Punk.
No
tattoos.
offense.
They're punk.
No offense, I'm going to really offend you right now.
They're PUNX tattoos.
They're supposed to be shitty.
They're supposed to be
shitty. Yeah. I mean, if your Black Flag bar has clean lines, then you're not really punk.
That's true.
But this is what I think is really funny. So you have like your Black Flag bars, right?
Yeah.
You don't even like Black Flag.
Not really.
I mean, come on!
I was a kid, and I like Damaged, but and the least it.
Like
I like the hipster version better. But
you have like the Minor Threat
Dirty
sheet.
Projector.
I like Dirty Projector's version of it better.
Way better.
I don't even know. I've never even heard that.
This fucking city.
But I've never been into Black Flag. Like, I've never been to Black Flag. I've never been into Misfits. I hate the Dead Kennedys. Like, you get those, like, some of those old iconic punk bands, and I'm just like, fuck them. Like, I hate Op Ivy. Like, Social Deep, not my thing.
At least I like Minor Threat still. So my Minor Threat's
decent. I think the only
one of my
hardcore
favorites
band from the 80s I'm still into to this day is Reagan Youth. Have you heard
Reagan Youth. I really like SSD Control. I can listen to them all the time. I can listen to Bad Brains all the time.
Yeah, Bad Brains are good.
I really like Bad Brains.
Older Bad Brains or newer Bad Brains?
I'm cool with either. Like, honestly, I'm okay with the reggae. Like,
it's just funny that they switched. Yeah,
each their own.
Sure. No, they did a good job with both. So
but there's very few that I can really think of in the early '80s that I'm like still. Yeah, I'll listen to that. Like even Gorilla Biscuits. Like I can listen to it. I don't hate it, but I'm not gonna put them on. I'm way more into like the post '90s stuff.
I was like, I don't know. I was really into weird music. You kind of came out of like the Crass stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I was out of like New Red Archives and.
So you're like into Crass. You're like into Atari Teenage Riot.
Mostly just UK anarcho bands.
Okay.
Crass, Conflict, Zounds, Flux of Pink Indians. That's what.
Did you go more into like the new age sound, like New Order, or that realm?
No.
Like how like the punk kind of like went in those two directions.
Yeah, mostly just like, so for example, there's this book released called The Day the Country Died, which is basically a biography of every single anarcho-punk band from the UK from 80 to 84. Any band that was part of Crass's little clique released a record on their record label, anything. That's more of what I follow.
So
Even
I
Bjork, right?
am not that knowledgeable.
What?
Didn't Bjork have a?
Yeah, Bjork had a band who released something on Crass Records.
Really?
As well. Yeah.
I really like Bjork. I've always liked Bjork.
Yeah.
But I like that she's kind of gonna do her own thing, you know.
Sure.
But I don't know much about like especially the UK scene. So like, where does the Sex Pistols fall into that?
Sex Pistols doesn't really fall.
Obviously, you can tell I don't know much because I'm defaulting to the Sex
right.
Pistols.
Well, okay, so Crass started
because I just to preface it, I've never been a huge Sex Pistols fan either.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can listen to it. I mean, it's like listening to Ramones for me. It's like whatever, but it's not like I'm going to put them on.
Yeah, Crass's big thing and a large piece of their motivation was that because punk to them was dead before it even started. Like Sex Pistols and The Clash, they were good and all, but to Crass, they just sold out their ideals so quickly to make a quick buck, you know. And Crass's whole viewpoint was, let's actually make this what it was meant to be, a DIY kind of culture. And they did make money. They made quite a decent amount of it. But for example, their second release, full length, which was Stations of the Crass, they had to repress it because it sold way more than they thought, and they made a lot of money off of it, and they chose to make a record label.
So would they be like more like how we view Discord records in the United States?
Possibly. I mean, again, it's just kind of like their whole idea.
But I wouldn't call Discord like strictly punk. They're just all
Right.
about the artist, I guess.
Exactly. And so their idea was, look, there are a lot of bands out there that play good music and have a good message, but no one's ever going to care about them unless we start a label because we've already made a name for ourselves. And if they see our logo
It gives it some
and
credibility.
label, yeah, and that's why there are so many bands that are even remotely well known, like Zounds. They would have never.
I don't even know who that is.
They're really good. I mean, but no one would have ever really known about them if they hadn't released something on Crass. So.
Zounds?
Yeah.
That was a Z? Zounds?
Yep.
Huh.
So.
What kind of music is it? I guess I've never heard them.
They're just like really dancey, upbeat punk music with. Some of their songs are just about whatever, but other songs have a message to them, you know?
Okay.
Just kind of depends.
Do you like your punk music with a message, or do you like it kind of just, well...
I can go either way, honestly.
Okay. I'm honestly like the same way. Like, one of the things that I've really been in the new Propaganda album.
I haven't heard it.
Feld States. I really like it. It's... Some of it sounds like your traditional like Propaganda, but other it just totally doesn't, right? Yeah, like it's... I'm pretty into that, and I like that because they've always had a message.
Yeah.
But I've always liked dumbass bands like Chicks Dig It. I know they're just a stupid poppy punk band, but you know what I mean. Like
that's how I was too. I came from ska, and then got into like, ska punk, and then into like punk, and then into hardcore. It's a really weird transition, but it makes sense. And so you would get like the Fat Records, who did both punk and ska bands, and so I'd have that crossover.
yeah,
and that's bands like Chicks Dig It and.
I always I look back on like my musical upbringing, and I did a huge disservice to myself very young of being like, if it's not like punk, if it's not like hardcore, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know.
Same here.
And now I'm looking back and I'm trying to like open up my realms of like what I'm listening to, and there's so much amazing music out there that doesn't fall into those.
Oh yeah.
Very specific categories. Like one of the ones I absolutely love, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it. They're called Bonobo. I don't know if you guys have heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
They're more like an ambient type of, but it's just amazing stuff to listen to. Or like Zoe Keating, she's a cellist.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing, like huge. I've been really trying to expand into that.
Yeah, it's much harder for me to do now that I'm older. Expand to different stuff. I'm just so content with pulling out an old punk CD and popping it in.
I was having for like such a long time, but like what's really funny is like I don't listen to new hardcore. I don't listen to new punk stuff. I'm not into the new in those those areas. I'm content with my library, kind of, so to speak.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Like if bands come up with something, I'll like Strife's new album. It's very strifey.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to say that. You know what I mean? Like they haven't played for years,
sounds
but
like
it sounds like Strife. You know, we're
Back in the 90s.
and so like I'll check that out. Like if Earth Crisis releases a new album, I'll check that out. But I'm not like looking for new hardcore bands. I'm not looking, you know. But if somebody says, hey, you should check out, you know, this, you know, awesome bluegrass band. I mean, like, fucking sweet. You know, like I'll check that out because I know nothing about it.
Right.
And I really like the sound of bluegrass. I really like the, you know, the old folky. But you know, I feel bad that I really limited myself so young and not being able to do that. But
BRB.
All right.
So while he's gone, you wanted to talk about grand juries, sir.
I can talk about grand juries.
Let's talk about grand juries. You want to talk about a very specific grand jury incident?
Well, I'll let you talk about that.
Do you want me to set up like what we're talking about?
No, I mean, I really don't know details on that,
So you don't want to talk about it?
Probably shouldn't talk about it.
Okay, well let's not talk about that.
I'll just make quick notes though. Always resist grand jury. And don't ever fall under their pressure. Yeah.
You know, it's a sad thing. Like, if you get called to a grand jury, you should immediately know you're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
If you're coming on the standpoints of resistance,
Mm-hmm.
like that should be an expectation.
It's sad because, I mean, obviously, like in my case, I knew absolutely nothing, and I think that in most cases where grand juries are used in the political and radical communities, most people who are called to them aren't involved at all.
You know, what I really think is that it's unfortunate that people won't have open conversations with the people in their lives and be like, look, if situation A happens, this is what's going to happen. Like, you know, I've already talked to Callie. I've already told my parents, hey, like, if I get called to a grand, mainly because of what happened with you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if I get called to a grand jury, I'm not going to cooperate. I don't care what the grand jury is about. It could be about some serial killer I live next to. I'm not going to cooperate. I don't agree with the system. I'm going to go to jail. Like, just understand that from the get-go. I think that would make, if people would have those hard conversations, just be like, if you're going to come from a standpoint of resistance, let everyone know and be prepared to what that really means and entails. Yeah. So, like, when you take that stance, you know, your partner or your friends aren't coming to me like, you don't really need to take this stance. They already know that you're going to take this stance. And so it's no surprise to them. You already had those hard conversations.
And I think, like, in my situation, I think it's pretty obvious. Now, anybody in my life would know if that happened.
You're going to take that
same
stance.
That's what's going to happen, yeah. If I get called to another grand jury, sadly, nothing's going to change.
Yeah, you know,
it's my stance. It's not a matter of hiding information from the government. It's a matter of fuck grand juries.
You know, and I think it really separates the kids that want to play resistance and actually are going to have resistance. You can't just sit back and say, I'm going to play anarchist and I'm going to resist the government and I'll talk about this and I'll live in my little anarchist house. And then when it comes down to it, not do it.
Yeah,
there's a difference between like what reality is and then play. And people need to get out of that play mode.
When you get called to a grand jury and you have some extreme fucking support, you know, that's a privilege to have that fucking.
It is
kind
a
of
huge
support.
privilege. Yeah.
I'm not saying that I didn't get supported, but I didn't get a shit ton. You know, there is definitely. Less support for me than I've seen in.
It's ironic to me that now anarchists get more support than animal rights activists.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it wasn't always that way.
No, it definitely was not always that way.
Yeah, and so totally, there's some grand jury resistors out right now, and if you don't know anything about them, look up the Pacific Northwest Grand Jury Resistance, and you can find how to write them there in prison.
Definitely write them.
Yeah, because that's the best thing. Like when you're in prison, I can't tell you enough just how important it is to get letters and just to know that people are actually out there and remembering you, because it can get pretty miserable in there. Every day that we live, just make it feel like a week for a person in prison, because it just seems. So
Iz was gonna draw more pictures to send to him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, personally, I can't contact.
You can't contact him, but I think
can't contact anybody.
And I could be correct, but I'm sorry if I'm correct, but I believe ever since she's been old enough, anyone who's resisted a grand jury, she sent them a letter.
That's cute.
She hasn't sent to every prisoner, but she's sent to a lot, and it's really cute, you know. And she's always like, "They're my vegan heroes," you know.
And it's so weird how I think I don't know. I don't want to say that my case was the one that started it, but it seems like grand juries are getting.
I think they go. I mean, I remember. Late 90s, early 2000s, they were getting popular again. I think it goes with whatever, you know, if that's a tactic the current administration wants to use or not, basically. You know, it seems clear that the Obama administration is very okay with targeting these communities in this manner.
Yeah.
You know, like, even though these communities are completely nonviolent,
or have
as far as I'm concerned,
or have nothing to do with anything.
You know, like correct me if I'm wrong, but the Pacific Northwest one, isn't it about breaking windows?
The one that
or vandalizing a courthouse or something like that.
I think it's something like that. I don't know the details, but I think it has something.
I mean,
to
it's
do with
so ridiculous to really
Mayday Black
spend
Rock
so much time on, you know, and it makes you sad to think that the government is spending so much time on such puny matters. When there are rapists out there.
I mean, I'm not saying this is the right thing to do, but I think that, you know, it would be a pretty strong stand for someone who broke a window to just say, you know what, I fucking broke a window.
Yeah, I broke the window. Yeah. You know, if if you have 3 or 4 people
charge me for destruction of property, you know, It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's over a window.
I mean, that shit is just beyond ridiculous. But I mean, then again, I understand if it's a courthouse, it's probably a felony.
Yeah,
I get that.
I mean, there's probably.
I'm not saying fuck the person who did this and they're not standing up. That's not what we're saying.
No, for sure. Yeah,
but I mean, it's a fucking window.
It's a window. Like they're so extreme about it, you know. And I think it is. It's 3 people in now because Leia got out, but.
And why did she get out?
It's not known yet, but the support has been dropped for her. So, in my circumstance, there was somebody who didn't face time because she decided to testify.
She openly testified. Yeah.
And that's just it's
sad.
It's sad. It's not a matter of. I mean, and like. It's not and like it's hiding government. It's not like I had anything to hide from the government. It's an issue of it's wrong for our community to do that.
You know, and like that. My whole stance is that like if you're gonna go in and say I'm gonna cooperate, that's what you feel you have to do. I'm not gonna sit back and say, you know, let's target this person, but the community needs to know that they've chosen not to be a part of the community. And that's it. Just so you know, and be like, you know, you decided that you didn't want to partake of what we feel our society or our community should, part of our ideals. You just can't be part of our society or our culture. Or
exactly. It's not like you're saying It's not like you're saying snitches get stitches, really.
Exactly.
You're saying you're just not welcome.
You're saying snitches aren't welcome.
Yeah, snitches aren't welcome.
Snitches aren't welcome. They're straightforward. Like, you know.
Yeah. And that isn't a bad thing. If somebody came to my house and they were being a complete dick...
You're saying you're not welcome.
Just get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out. Exactly.
That's all it's saying.
You know, like, this is our community. This is our... You know, we decide that, you know, cooperating with the government is not an ideal that we believe in. We believe that the government is inherently based on violence and it's on the destruction, you know, to uphold the power that is over the people, the working class. And we don't agree with that. If you're going to go along with that, don't be with us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not rocket science.
And that's pretty much like in my case.
I mean,
that's
like somebody like wanting to go to like some white right-wing fundamentalist church and being like, oh, but I had an abortion last week. They're gonna be like, no. You can't come here if you're going to be actively having abortions.
And me and my partner just moved in.
Exactly. You know, like it's. I hate to really say that anarchists are similar to fundamentalist Christians.
By no means are they. Yeah, it's just an important issue, and I always recommend, and I've said it numerous times, and it's sad because it's come true. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it happens to your community, and you just need to read up on it. Just grand juries in general.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't informed, then when they come around, you'll be caught off guard.
Totally. Let me just plug this here, though. I've been a friend of AK Press now for a couple months.
Well,
and I fucking love it. It is the coolest thing in the world.
I would be a friend, too, if I could afford it.
Yep. Okay.
It's not like I'm not. I mean, if they wanted to hang out, I'd totally be their friend, but I just can't afford their friendship.
But seriously, like, if you can't, it's not that. If you have free money, not that everyone does, it's one of the coolest things in the world to be able to come home. Like, this huge, like, this week, I come home, I get this huge fucking package, and it's the new Anarchist FAQ Volume 2. Fucking rad.
Yeah.
It's like a birthday present all the time. Like, I don't even... So I'm just gonna say, if you've ever thought about it, it's really cool.
How much is it?
I think they have 3 plans. Mm-hmm. Like there's like an ebook only, a print only, and a print and ebook only. I could be off on these plans. Like, they're honestly not paying us for this because no one's gonna listen to this anyways.
Yeah.
But I think it's and like I said, go to akpress.org. They have more of the details there, but it's like 15 for the ebook only, I think 25 for the print only, and 35 for the combination, where you get the print and ebook. So, and like they do about $20 a year, so
which is a good deal.
It's a good deal. You know, you probably end up paying just a little bit more than if you bought all the books, because you get you get every book they publish for free.
So you get about 2 a month, more or less?
More or less 1 a month. Every once in a while you get 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty cool because you get like every book they publish, plus you get discounts off their back catalog. Excuse me, so you can really build it up. And like, I'm not a huge reader. I haven't read the last 2 I've gotten. But I got them.
The last AK Press book that I read was the Accumulation of Freedom, and that kind of just dried me out.
You know, I can't finish Accumulation of Freedom.
I only finished it because I was in prison, and that's what I did instead of working.
Well, I sent it to you at prison. I sent Accumulation of Freedom to you in prison when it came out, because I wanted to read it with you, and I'd be like, awesome, we can talk about anarchist economics. And I couldn't finish it.
We can talk about it. It's just, you know, no offense. I think it's a really great book that promotes. You know, it talks about the history and stuff. But I think it's a very dry book. It's just dry, and no offense to the people who wrote it. It's just what it is. Oh no, it's not me, Noam Chomsky. No offense to you, bro, but you're dry.
Noam Chomsky, you're dry, bro.
Love you, but you're dry.
You know, I had a political science class one time. It was the first day of class, and I'm sitting there waiting for the professor to show up, and I was reading a Noam Chomsky pamphlet. I don't even remember which one it was, just one of those little readers, you know. I'm sitting at the back of the class, and some guy walks by, looks at what I'm reading, he goes, Noam Chomsky, huh? I'm like, yeah. He goes, this is going to be an interesting semester. And walks up, and he's the professor. I'm like, oh, fuck.
That's just like my political ideologies class. Everyone was going around introducing themselves, and they were supposed to say, like, how they identify politically.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm a Republican. One kid made a joke about being Christian right, and everybody, like, looked at him and gasped, but then he's like, I'm just kidding. And then
I'm Christian right. I'm just kidding. I'm only Mormon right.
Yeah. And then it got to me, and I'm like, I guess I would identify as maybe like an anarcho-syndicalist, green tendencies. I'm also vegan, and that's really important. I was like saying it all nervous and stuff. And
People are like, anarcho-syndicalist, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, literally.
and I was probably 18 or 19 at the time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I was just a little shy about it, and the professor's like, all right, let's stop on that, and let's discuss this. I'm like, oh, fuck. I should just shut up.
Was that the communist one?
Yeah.
Okay, at least he's...
Turns out that he was a Marxist, and so we got along but didn't, you know. And
yeah,
so,
like how Marxists and anarchists always do.
yeah.
You have a common enemy, and then your enemy is in and of itself.
And so for my final, it was a political ideologies class, so we were supposed to create our own political ideology, and I just based something off like anarcho-tribalism, communalism, something like that. And then he said that it was too idealistic. It just pissed me off. But I got like a C in that class.
Have
When
you
I
had
should've
your
gotten higher.
anarchist tendencies come out in college at all?
Not
The professors?
yet. A little bit in my humanities class, which is always awesome because there's been a couple people in my humanities class that have just straight up said that, oh, anarchists can't be taken seriously. And it's just like,
Really talk about.
Well,
where does that even come from?
You know, and part of that, like, I would agree, like, the idea that most people have of anarchists, when you think, if you go to the average person and you say they picture an anarchist, they're picturing some stupid fucking kid
Yeah.
who doesn't really have political ideology.
Circle
They're
A.
just, they're just like, you know, chaos.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I would agree with that aspect of it, but that's not anarchism,
Right.
you know. But
Define
that same professor that I have with Noam Chomsky, every time we talked about anything that was left-leaning at all, he'd always stop and be like, is that correct? Is that what you guys actually believe? I'm like, fuck, Jesus. Like, I'm not going to be like the mouthpiece. Like,
Yeah.
And that's I honestly that's how I felt
spokesperson
too.
for the
Like,
left.
yeah, you know, like, I'm the only one, you know.
Yeah, no, it's just like they've come out a little bit. Like in my English class in spring semester, I wrote a paper about Asada, who was a big part of the, you know, Black Liberation Front, Black Panther Party in the
Yeah,
60s and 70s and stuff. And then in my humanities class, I've called upon some of the texts I've read to, you know, relate to other readings we have in the class. And it's pretty clear that my tendencies are not your standard Democrat, Republican in that class, and I think it makes certain people feel uneasy. But another thing I've noticed is that there are actually a lot more kids coming into college than there used to be that are open-minded to that kind of ideology and kind of have similar leanings and notions themselves as well.
Well,
so,
it's taken so long since the Red Scare to even be able to talk about these true leftist politics. You know, like, have an open debate about, you know, what real socialism is. Have an open debate about what real communism is. You know, and anarchism also. Like, for so long you couldn't even have an intellectual debate about these ideologies. You know, the pros or cons. And I agree. Like, it's slowly being able to, like, start to have those intellectual conversations. I don't think among the older population yet still, because I think they still default back to the Red Scare.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can't even bring up the word socialism without being demonized. Like, okay, well, what is
what's
socialism?
so demonizing
Like,
about it?
whenever I brought that up, people they were like, "Oh, well, that's socialist." Okay, well, what is socialism?
Well,
Well, that's government taking over. Well, is it?
Yeah.
You know,
I've even gotten to people that don't even know what it means.
yeah. Oh no, most of them have no idea what it really means.
Well, Obama's a socialist pig.
What?
Trying to kill my
Like,
grandparents.
Explain that.
Like I said earlier, I wish Obama had some socialist tendencies.
Oh yeah.
And maybe he does, because he originally said he wanted like a single payer healthcare system. That would be more along the socialist tendency. What we ended up with is nowhere near socialism.
Right.
And it's not even like crossing the line.
Yeah, and I guess that's common in presidential politics. You have an appealing aspect that, you know, public views as a good idea, and then they come around and get elected, and it ends up being completely different. And that was the case with Obama. I think he has specific socialist tendencies, but he tends to compromise way too heavily on some of his socialist tendencies with Congress.
You know,
And so...
one of the things on election night that just happened, I remember I was following Twitter at the same time. This is before we knew that Barack Obama had won re-election.
Uh-huh.
I was reading Twitter, and one of the people I follow, I can't remember who, was like, I hope all my friends would agree. I would much rather protest against Obama than protest against Romney. And they're like really like searching me like, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I would I don't agree with Obama, but I would much rather be opposed to him than being opposed to Romney.
I was gonna touch up on the point of voting again.
Okay.
In for a presidential candidate when we have electoral colleges, and what's the point if you're in a state like ours? What do you think?
Like, what's the point of voting, or does your vote matter?
What's the point? What's the point of even putting anything down for a presidential nominee in a state like ours?
To show that this is my personal opinion, in a state like ours where I could be off on the statistics, about 70% of the populace that voted for Mitt Romney here.
Yeah.
Which is kind of scary to think about. I think it is important to show those 70% that there is a 30%.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, just to say, we do exist, and there's a decent amount of us. Like, it's not just... That's it. I don't think it goes... I mean, as far as politics, it doesn't mean fucking thing, but...
For me, I did the thing that all the liberals will get mad about. I voted for the third party candidate because I know that it wouldn't happen.
Because you're young.
Yeah, it's because I'm young. Huh? Well, I voted for Jill Stein, but even the Libertarian Party, Gary Johnson,
Yeah.
he got more votes than she did. He got 1% of the vote, but I think that's
Technically,
significant.
according to Google, he got just shy of 1%.
I think that's still significant, showing that at least 1% of the population is voting for a specific third party candidate.
I mean, look at Nader. He got the closest in 2000.
And that's Ford,
He
right?
got a little over 4%, if I remember correctly.
And it's just, I think for congressional funding, it's 5%.
I believe so, yeah.
And that's the goal that I was trying to achieve. And I know that this campaign isn't the one that would have done it, but, I knew Obama would get in, and I knew that Romney would win our state, so I didn't really care.
Maybe I'm just too pessimistic, but I've pretty much given up on the idea of fighting for a third party.
I yet to give up on that.
I view and again, maybe it's just because I'm so pessimistic about it, but I view fighting for a third party as being less realistic than fighting for a complete change in our political system.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I really
Or
don't
maybe
know
they're
about
both just as...
Yeah, I voted as being about as realistic,
Yeah.
and therefore irrealistic.
Yeah,
But it doesn't seem too crazy of an idea. 5% of a vote. I think that all these parties, no offense, I don't know enough about why they're doing what they're doing, but there's these third parties that the candidates aren't even congressionally eligible to take office if they were win. Like, they're either not, they're like a foreign-born citizen, or they're not of age, and it's like I don't know. My thought is, why don't everybody just get together and vote for a third party that's not gonna get in, so they can get congressional funding? I don't know. You know what I mean?
But, I mean, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it sounds good.
Because, you take all the third parties, they all got, 0.1. You add all those together, you got 2% now.
And that's another thing, is that there were a lot of third-party candidates this year.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a large part of the problem. If you want that to even happen, again, the closest we ever came was Ralph Nader getting something like 4% in 2000. That's because all the focus was on
Ralph Nader.
Ralph Nader, exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
So
And this year we had like Roseanne Barr, and all the pot smokers
And-
wanted
and-
her because that was her platform.
She's anti-transgender.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I heard. I heard she's pro-gay but anti-transgender. Like, what the hell?
Fuck if I know.
Like, that doesn't.
that doesn't make.
I mean, like I've never come across somebody that way.
I think, and I could be wrong, and I apologize if I am. But from what I heard is that she said something along the lines of, that women or people who are born men and choose to be women are taking the rights away from women because from a feminist standpoint, and that just doesn't. Yeah, that just doesn't fly with me. Yeah.
Who knows?
Did she state any reason why she
I
thinks that?
I really don't know, and that's why I don't like. This is all third party. I couldn't find her directly saying it either, so that's why I apologize if I'm wrong. But
All I saw was people talking about it on Twitter.
yeah, exactly. That's what I saw.
That's where my news comes
that
from.
was my source as well. And it said "Rest in peace, Justin Bieber" on Twitter too. So you can't.
I got quite a few Bieber Wiener tweets the other day. I don't know why.
Because him and Selena Gomez broke up.
So everyone wants
And
Bieber
so
Wiener
everyone
now?
wants Wiener Bieber. Wiener.
Wiener
Bieber,
Bieber?
There we go.
Or Bieber Peen?
Well, do you blame him? Look at him. He's 18 now, right?
Fuck, we're at an hour.
Yes, we are.
Want to call it?
Yep. All right, guys.
Boom.
Yeah.